There's this idea that silence is peaceful. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's exactly what you need. After a long day, after too much noise, after too many people. But there's another kind of silence that doesn't feel like rest. It feels heavy, like the room is too big, like time is moving slower than it should, like you're suddenly aware of yourself in a way that's uncomfortable, like you're stuck inside your own head with no way to step out of it. It doesn't always happen when you are physically alone. You can feel it in a crowded room, sitting next to people you know, even while talking to someone. You just feel like there's this invisible distance that you can't quite close, no matter how hard you try. And when that feeling sticks around long enough, when it stops being temporary and starts becoming your default state, it begins to change you. It's not a bombastic and dramatic process that happens all at once in one bad day. It's in small, almost unnoticeable ways that you don't really notice until other people point it out to you, or until you look in the mirror and realize you don't really recognize yourself anymore. You don't react to things the way you used to. You don't trust people the way you used to. You don't even think the same way anymore. This video is about loneliness. Not just loneliness as a feeling, but loneliness as a force. A force that reshapes behavior, perception, and identity. There are two bases that I will be using to address this topic. The quiet and deeply uncomfortable Lindy game No, I'm Not a Human, and a character who is about as far from quiet as you can get. Conquest, from the comics and Amazon animated series. At first, they don't seem related at all, but they're actually showing us different points on the same spectrum. Section 1: Loneliness versus isolation. People like to define loneliness and isolation in really clean, simple ways. Isolation is physical, loneliness is emotional. And that's true, but it doesn't really capture what it feels like to live through it. Isolation isn't just being alone inside of a physical space. It's when there's no interruption to this state, no new input, no outside perspective, no one to challenge your thoughts or ground you when your mind starts drifting into weird places. In many ways, you are not part of anything. Not of society, a group of friends, a community. Suddenly, the physical space you are alone inside feels a lot bigger, and you don't see any doors to get out. Loneliness, for a lot of people, is seen more as just feeling sad. It's more like a disconnection, like there's a layer between you and everything else, between you and other people, between you and your community, between you and reality, even. When those two things overlap, when you are physically alone and emotionally disconnected, that's when things get a lot more difficult. Your brain tries to compensate, to fill in the gaps that are formed inside of your being due to that disconnection and the constant state of emptiness that you feel. And it doesn't always do a good job. Section 2. No, I'm not a human, and the fear of the other. No, I'm not a human is a very modern game. I don't mean modern in the sense that it has the most edge-cutting graphics, innovative or groundbreaking gameplay mechanics. It's modern in a way that this game wouldn't have worked and resonated with people nearly as much if it had been released, let's say, 7 years ago. The game follows a nameless and faceless protagonist, going through apocalyptic and terrifying events that drive the populace into a state of distrust, paranoia, and loneliness. You are one of these people, except this isn't something new for you, is it? The protagonist has always been alone. Your neighbor points that out. Why would I let a stranger into my house? I know you prefer to keep your distance from people, but you have to. I hate dealing with people. I know. It won't be easy for you, but you have no choice. It might be the only thing that keeps you alive. The game doesn't make loneliness feel like longing. You have lived for so much time in this state, accustomed yourself to this so much to the point that you truly believe that having a connection to someone else would only be a bad thing. Honestly, I'm better off alone. You can even talk out loud to yourself. One of those magazines where you gotta find a certain person in the crowd. Must be annoying. Wish people would just leave me alone already. It makes you feel like loneliness is all you have, like all you will ever have, and all that you need. And that's how the game builds its tension. Because other people do show up. Not only that, but you are forced to accept at least some of these people into your home, some of your most private spaces. Your living room, your kitchen, your closet, even your bathroom. Every interaction feels wrong, slightly off, like something isn't lining up the way it should. You're constantly asking yourself, is this person real? Are they safe? Am I about to make a mistake by trusting them? You stop seeing other people as potential connection and you start seeing them as potential threats. And once that happens, once loneliness stops being something you want to fix and starts being something you protect, something that you actively value in your life, being alone becomes safer than taking the risk of being wrong about someone. You put on a metaphorical suit of armor that covers you completely from harm, but it also means you don't get to feel anything good either. You're simply safe. But at what cost? No, I'm not a human leans into this feeling hard. From the start of the game, we are already wearing this armor. We've already accepted the reality that being alone is better than risking being hurt. It never gives you any relief. It doesn't give you any certainty. It just keeps reinforcing the doubt, the paranoia, the fear of letting yourself not be alone. You're not isolated by circumstance. You isolate yourself on purpose. Section 3. what isolation actually does to your mind. There's a reason that the kind of experience your character in No, I'm Not a Human feels so real. Because, in a way, it is real. When people go through extended periods of social isolation due to trauma, circumstance, or any other reason, their brains start changing how they process social information. You become more alert to threats, but not in a useful way. You begin overinterpreting things. A neutral expression looks hostile, like that person is personally annoyed at you, but doesn't really want to show it. A delayed response always feels intentional and calculated. Did you say the wrong thing? Did you say it at the wrong time? Maybe it's both? Silence by itself feels like rejection. And because you don't have enough real interaction to balance those interpretations out, they just reinforce themselves. Your brain is trying to protect you, but it's working with incomplete data. It's making guesses, and those guesses tend to skew to the negative. That's why isolation can make people more paranoid, more withdrawn, sometimes even more hostile. Not because they've become bad, egocentric people, but because their entire frame of reference for other human beings has shifted. Every interaction is a potential fight. Every person is a potential threat. You are the only certainty in your life, and so you don't need anyone else. Anyone else is a liability, a threat, an abuser, a waste of energy. Section 4. We need to talk about conquest. This is where things get uncomfortable in a different way. Conquest isn't anxious, he isn't unsure, he isn't second guessing anything. He's completely certain. And that certainty is what makes him so disturbing. Most villains have something that drives them: revenge, ideology, righteousness, something. Conquest is not driven by anything like that. In fact, he's not driven by anything at all, really. His entire motivation, his entire drive is simply he enjoys this. He is fundamentally empty. Conquest is not quiet. He doesn't look obviously depressed. I interpret Conquest's endless thirst for carnage and battle as sort of a way of finding that connection with other beings. Battle, carnage, genocide are literally all he has ever known for thousands of years. Notice how much he talks and interacts with his adversaries during his fights in an encouraging and positive manner.
Very good! Ha! Faster than I thought. Hey, don't give up. You can do this. You've still got a chance.
It's a completely different vibe of what Battle Beast does, for example, which are interactions solely for the purpose of leading his adversary to make him die a glorious death for facing an opponent stronger than he is. Of course, I don't want to be disingenuous. Conquest also has a lot of interactions akin to Battle Beasts.
Where is your Viltrumite heart? Until I see it beating in my hand, I won't believe you have one. Show me your power. Show me your rage. Oh almost there.
He is still a Viltrumite and he genuinely likes fighting. You would grow to like it too if your entire purpose was to fight and kill other beings. Conquest may be, in fact, the most needy and purposeless Viltrumite. By far, he would be the most propense Viltrumite to embrace Earth's culture, as he would finally find what he truly craves: a genuine purpose and long-term connection to other living beings that he simply never got from the culture he was born and raised into. This is also reinforced by the genuine emotional maturity he demonstrates during his "I am so lonely" monologue. All he needs is just opportunity to change, which he never got. Every one of his missions was for the sole purpose of genocide or conquering worlds through force, and we see that the Viltrum Empire was not a stranger to sending out agents on more altruistic missions, as seen by Theta seemingly being changed by his experience after spending time in another planet on a mission. Conquest's loneliness is not born from a choice, from a fear of rejection, or from getting hurt. His loneliness has been hardwired into his being by an ideology, by a system. Conquest has been stripped away from connection, from meaning and emotional grounding from someone. He isn't simply lonely, he's completely disconnected from the idea that these things are even a possibility. He recognizes his struggles, he shows that he is able to reflect. Being able to actually put your feelings, worries, and frustrations into words, to actually say these things out loud, is a remarkable action for humans who suffered with negligence, abuse, and strict environments throughout their lives. Can you imagine how hard that is for a Viltrumite? This is another side of how isolation can happen to someone: through force. Maybe by being exiled from their communities, by being neglected by your parents, by growing up with a strict and unloving parent that teaches you from a young age to be as tough as you can be, that connection is a weakness. Deep down, you know this is wrong. You wish things were easier. You wish someone would just care. But at the same time, how can you escape this reality when it's literally all you've known? When you don't even know where to start? Section 5. The Missing Middle. What's really interesting is the space between these two examples, because most people don't just go from "I feel a little lonely" to renouncing their social life just because. There's a middle stage, the most dangerous one. It's where you still want connection, but you don't trust it anymore. You're terrified of it. Letting yourself be vulnerable has gotten where you are now, and you don't feel very happy, do you? So you hesitate before reaching out. You assume the worst before anything even happens. You start pulling away, not because you want to be alone, but because it feels inevitable. This is where "No, I'm not a human" sits. Conquest is not that case. Conquest is aware enough to feel the loneliness, but too disconnected to resolve it. He feels as though he is a lost cause. He will never be able to get what he truly wants. So, in his mind, the only option he has left is that he must contend with his reality. His only option is to drown these feelings with moments of temporary ecstasy, like conquest battles and killing sprees. Also, parties, drugs, sex, video games, debating, street fighting, opening your heart to a complete stranger that you will never see again in a bar. Conquest feels like an outlier, like something exaggerated for the sake of storytelling. But he's not. He's what happens when you remove every counterbalance. No relationships, no consequences that matter to him emotionally, no reason to value anything outside of your immediate sensation. He's not just violent because he enjoys it, he enjoys it because it's the only thing that cuts through the emptiness. In a way, he is dependent on Viltrum's cruelty. Without it, what would he have? I don't think Conquest is truly alone. He would find a lot of people on this planet that feel the same way he does. Section 6. The quiet version of this. Of course, most people aren't going to become anything close to Conquest, but the quieter version of this is everywhere nowadays. It's in the way people stop replying, stop reaching out, stop believing that connection is worth the effort. It's in the slow shift from I feel alone to I am alone to it doesn't matter anymore. And that last step, that's the one that's hardest to notice while it's happening. Because it's not dramatic, it's not a big choice that the person makes and decides to announce to everyone. It's simply numbness. Section 7. Other stories that get this right. This idea shows up in a lot of places, even outside of these two examples. In Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle's isolation doesn't just make him sad, it warps his sense of reality and justice. In Her, loneliness becomes something softer, but just as disorienting, where connection feels real, but also strangely artificial. And in Frankenstein, you see one of the earliest and clearest examples of this progression. A being that starts out craving connection and becomes monstrous and bitter when it's rejected. Different tones, different genres, same core idea. Isolation doesn't just hurt people, it changes the foundational way of how people relate to the world. Loneliness isn't just a temporary emotion you push through, and isolation isn't just a situation you wait out. If they go on long enough, they start to reshape how you see everything: other people, yourself, reality. No, I'm not a human shows what it feels like to be someone that is resistant to change, someone that is afraid of being hurt, of being taken advantage of. It shows someone who has grown used to this state and now, even while facing destruction, are resistant to let it go. Conquest shows what it looks like when someone didn't choose this state. Someone whose circumstances, environment, role models, teachings simply gave them no choice but to be alone. This is all they have ever known. They were born into this. And even if they don't want to be like this anymore, they have no idea where to even start. That heavy silence from the beginning, the one that doesn't feel peaceful, it's easy to ignore at first, easy to explain away, but it's also where all of this starts. not with something extreme, just with distance. And whether that distance closes or it keeps growing, usually depends on whether something interrupts it or if you get used to it.